Alright. We're now live-ish. Sorry, I've had to adjust things a little bit because I'm multitasking with my studio here.
There we go.
Okay. Alright, let me make sure that we're live here. We are live there.
Welcome back.
I don't need to be on that. Sorry. Still had that pulled up.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends.
No,
this is Composer Talk. And
sorry about this reset. Long story short, I use the same streaming equipment for like 18 different channels at this point. No joke. So yeah, apologies while we figure that out. So yes, Composer Talk, week 7. We're on the 7th week. Zach Daniels.
Jacob Frost.
We are here to talk about some composery stuff that's happening in the... Can you pull that curtain to where it's like... Yeah, I just realized that it's got like huge light bleed on the sides of our faces. Yeah, just pull that nice and taut. Yeah, that'll be perfect. As much... Okay. Oh, that's so much better. Okay, that fixed it. Alright, sorry about that. Yeah, just... Chaotic, you know, final week and all that, and I literally shot a different video for a different channel like not even 5 minutes ago. So
we're on Dead Week, as they call it here, which is somewhat of a misnomer. Although actually
you have a dead week, I don't. I've never had a truly dead week.
Although if we're judging by the mental state of the students, that Dead Week is probably an excellent way of putting it.
Just no. All right.
Anyway, in news this week, we start off with another award announcement. The Jerome Fund for New Music, which funds commissions from contemporary composers, just announced their 2018, late 2017 grant recipients. I have a list of them here. There's 10 of them. And their names are Leah Vitrucki, Michael Betts, William Healy, Eric Mason, Joel Mellon, Martin Nevin, Lester St. Louis, Wolfgang Feigut, Shelley Washington, and Mark Yodis. Each of them has been commissioned to write a different work with the Jerome Fund funding all of them. And this is based out of Minnesota, and it's I believe sponsored, and at least in part, by the American Composers Forum, which is where you find the announcement on their website. These I don't know any of these people, so it seems to be a lot of new names, new people in the field, getting a chance to shine. So check them out. Each has been commissioned to write a unique work, so it's gonna be exciting.
Awesome. Yeah,
yes.
that's cool. I love whenever composers, especially when, honestly, I think I like it better whenever composers that I don't know win something, because it forces me to recognize these people, and in some cases discover their music. I'll admit, sometimes I don't enjoy discovering the music, but more often than not, I learn something.
Nobody likes everything.
Well, nah, that's a different issue. So, next up, this is kind of just sidebar to composition-related topics, but so you're familiar with music visualizers?
Right.
So somebody did a huge time-lapse project, and if you don't know, time-lapse photography is like you sit there and you take shots of a scene or a scenery, you know, throughout days, weeks, months, whatever. And someone took that to the umpteenth level and decided, I'm going to do it with New York City.
Right,
and that's really
just
cool.
To be clear to viewers, if you read this article, and we'll post a link in the description. It's not just a time-lapse video; it's a layer-lapse video, which is and it's inspired by the theory of relativity. And essentially, instead of just doing a straight time-lapse of in this case the New York skyline, what the artist did was take different buildings and have them moving at different rates through time. So if you can see the video on the screen here. Do we have audio?
They can not directly, but I mean, I don't want to get in trouble for that, so I'm not going to.
That could be copyright. But I mean,
different issue.
You can see here. It's really cool. The buildings are moving through day and night, each one and all at different rates. So you have like a wave of daylight that goes across the screen.
That's just so cool. Like, because what this is giving me an idea for. I'll go ahead and pause that and I'll get rid of it. I don't want to get in trouble. But so what this gives me an idea for is, you know, that library piece that I've been kind of...
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of want to do something with that now, and I have the ability to do this because, you know, if you go into like the scope of like how you do this stuff and all that, I kind of want to do a live setting of it, but I kind of want to take that same concept except light different shelving in the library based on the notes that I'm hitting. This is gonna be a really cool piece. It'll be really hard to get performed, but it's gonna be really cool.
You know, this is of course a great example of uniting music with visuals, which is something that rock and pop musicians have been doing ever since, you know, well, for a long time, especially with the dawn of MTV in the 80s. I think it's a like a little electronic pop piece that they've set to it, which isn't of a whole lot of compositional interest, but fits with it well.
Yeah, but it's a really cool concept, and it gave me that idea, honestly. Of I kind of want to. Because I can program like one of my little RPi. I think I've got a spare. You see my little Raspberry Pi, right? My little.
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Yeah, I've got a few of those lying around. I might take one of those, plug in some LED light strips, and I might just go ham on the library. This is gonna be a great performance.
Yes.
Once I write.
But yes, uniting different mediums.
Yeah, it's a
good media.
Yeah, media.
Good idea.
We're doing like 8 seances at once now. All right, you want to take this next one?
Sure. This is just a kind of a tangentially related news item. There is a cloud-based TV recorder based in Italy. It's called the Vcast. So essentially what this company is that they advertise themselves as a video recorder. So if you're watching TV, it's essentially like taking, in the olden days, a VCR and recording your TV show on TV onto your VCR tape. Except this company provides a service that will record TV into cloud storage, so you can watch it online later. Some distributors, production companies brought suit against this company, and an EU court they just recently ruled their services illegal because they were not getting permission from rights holders. And from what I understand from the article, I don't really know anything about EU copyright law.
Well, basically what I took from it, and the reason why I decided to add it, because what this kind of sets up is, it sets up that courts are starting to see rights holder as an actual thing that needs to be respected, because, and this has happened a couple times. I think we had something our first or second week about the EU saying something about copyright. And this is really important for composers, because as we move more and more towards digital, and now more and more towards streaming services for music, it's becoming more and more critical for copyright laws to change, to adapt to this, because if they don't adapt to this new environment, then it's going to be really easy for you to compose all your life and your music's played all the time, but you don't make a dime. And that's no good.
The dispute here, if I recall correctly from the article, was is this within the legal allowance for personal making a copy for personal use, or is it for illegal distribution to other sources? And I guess what the court ruled is that it could potentially be used to distribute the material illegally, and so they actually had to get permission.
And that's how a lot of these rulings are going lately, which I'm a big fan of, because honestly it does protect my music, and it's a big reason why I keep most of my music, even the audio file, pretty much under lock and key. Like, you know, yeah, you can stream it through my website, but the only place you can get it is me. I don't post it on like Bandcamp, any of that other stuff, because I don't want to deal with that. I'm even moving my stuff off SoundCloud because of all their issues that they've been having lately.
Well, SoundCloud's issues are kind of separate. I mean,
they're kind of separate, but honestly,
it's more of just a business's doing rather poorly.
Well, I was moving stuff off of there anyways beforehand, because first of all, it's ludicrous. Like, you can only have like 100 minutes for free, and I've got way more than that on there. So yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's ludicrous, but yeah, so for multiple reasons now I'm moving stuff off SoundCloud. But anyways, yeah, so it's kind of good news. It's good news for composers that they're doing this.
Well, some would debate that, but we don't.
I think in general
into copyright law dispute. That would take like all day. to talk about copyright law. That might be
I ain't got the time.
a future special composer talk episode.
Oh jeez.
But anyway, moving on.
Ooh.
Zach, I believe you might want to talk about new updates to your favorite software.
Okay, so hashtag Dorico. Man, I love Dorico.
Please, would you stop saying hashtag out loud? It's really stupid.
I know it is. I do it on purpose at this point. And it's
Makes
mainly...
you sound like an idiot.
I know, I love it. It's great. I'm trying to dumb myself down. Anyway, so Dorico news, big news, the 1.2 update is out, which is a huge update. I was actually, I was mentioning to you, have you seen much of like what they added to the system?
No, except for the video you showed me.
Yeah, I showed one video. Basically what they've done is they have finally released, this is basically, I'm noting it as the percussion and cueing update. There's a lot of other stuff that's going on here, but one of the biggest things they've done is, so one of the big complaints has been, oh, Dorico, yeah, don't move to it if you do percussion, you know, if you do musicals, any of that stuff, there's no need to do it because their percussion notation is so far behind, da-da-da. Which, to be truthful, it was behind because Dorico just, Steinberg didn't want to release it yet, but they finally let the beast out of the cage, and oh my goodness, it is a wonderful system. And I think it has put all the other software companies to bed on their percussion notation. I mean, it is ridiculous. There's so much flexibility. I mean, I'm going to put the link in the description, but yeah, so much you can do with that. And they added the queuing system, which is about 1,000 times faster than Sibelius or Finale. I play with it on the dev version on my laptop a little bit. It's really good. They added fingering systems, which it's a fingering system. Can't get too complex with that. And then the thing that they finally added that has been a feature request for a while, just they didn't know how they wanted to integrate it, but they finally integrated the, you know, on Sibelius you can just hit 5 and it'll add a fifth above.
Yeah.
They finally added that. It's with a special tool, though. You go Shift-I, then you hit the numbers that you want, and you can even build special chords.
It's a very useful tool for lazy composers. It's, oh, I'll just harmonize this in parallel thirds. Oh, I'll just harmonize it in parallel thirds.
Well, see, but what you can do here is, so how do you build a full chord in Sibelius?
I mean, there's lots of ways you can do it.
Right, but using that method.
5, 3, 6.
What if I told you can do it in one command in Dorico? All of those.
Does it just have a chord inversion command that you?
No, you just type the intervals above or below you want. So you can type 3, -3,
I see.
-8.
I see. So
then it will do all that.
It's not one key click, but it's a command box that you type.
You do it all at once, and then to make it better, you can also do the diminish, major, minor,
right. which is one of the really annoying things about Sibelius. You put 3, but it doesn't let you choose major or minor or yeah.
Actually, some guy found a way around that. Apparently, if you can redo the back end, I'll see if I can find that video again. Someone figured out a way to do the back end where you can actually do it with. You still have to hold the minus or plus button, but yeah.
Right.
That might be a bit above your scope. But yeah, I don't know. But either way, so. Huge Dorico update. This is huge. I mean, at this point, there is officially no reason to hate on Dorico. Like, they're officially ahead. The only thing that is still slightly broken, but it's easily fixed, is the saxophones are really loud. But just dial them to 50%. That's what
sound and of course, sound patches should always be a secondary concern.
Well, and they are, and that's why Steinberg has even said that is so low on their priority list. It's not even funny because they want to create a composer's tool, not a listener's tool. So
it is very annoying if you're listening to the MIDI file, but
But again, I counteract it by I take them down 50%, and that compensates it. And honestly, that's something that on their end they can fix relatively quickly, but it just shows that they're concerned with the right things. And with this percussion update, it shows that all this stuff that they've been saying for a year about we're doing something great with percussion, just you watch, totally paid off. And then other things they added the ability for percussion kits. That's kind of sidebar but related. They added Sacred Heart and shape note notation. They added other things such as the chord builder that I mentioned. They improved the chord tool that they introduced in 1.1. Basically now it's a little bit more intelligent. It was already more intelligent than the rest, but now it is way more intelligent to where it will actually list. You can actually have it list multiple spellings for the same chord. So that, because for instance, like if you're a violinist and you're a cellist, you might prefer one chord spelling over another, and it will just have two spellings for you to look at. So lots of cool things looking at that. But yeah, I'm gonna post this whole article in the description. It's wonderful. I mean, I love Dorico. I love talking about it, and at this point, it's officially king now. With that update, like, there's nothing that any other software has on it. Can you think of anything that Sibelius can do?
I see Sibelius. I've always hated Sibelius.
More reason to switch.
No, I'm sure if I had Dorico, I would find reasons to hate Dorico too. But well, I mean, you know, up to this point, you know, Sibelius, despite its flaws, has been the best composer software. But Dorico does seem to be getting the upper hand, and of course with their creative team that they've put together, they're set for quite a long time going forward, as opposed to Sibelius. So yeah.
Yeah, hang on really quick. Literally breaking news. This literally just hit my inbox as you were talking. I just got the ASCAP Daily Brief, and the headline caught my attention on my screen, so I opened it. Wow.
I've been seeing people doing this, posting these on Facebook.
I'll let you talk about it then. Yeah.
So
wow.
Essentially, Spotify released a tool that you can post a summary of this past year's listening habits to Facebook. So it's one of the one of these silly things that people post on their page. What have you listened to this year? So it lists your top five artists, your top genre, and your top 5 songs. I've just been seeing several friends post this on Facebook. I very rarely use Spotify.
I don't enjoy Spotify, but I know a lot of people do.
I only really use it to, you know, if a friend shares a playlist with me, I may listen to that. I do have it on my computer.
And honestly, this ties in really nicely. It's something that we might get to later on, but our data, because a huge reason why they're wanting to do this. In fact, do you want to go ahead and just mention that?
Well, briefly? I mean, we might not get to it until next week, but there has been research coming out about record companies and producers and things like that, and how they're starting to use data from streaming apps to target new artists and can choose which artists to promote and to advertise. So this feature probably does not have any direct relation to that, but the idea that
they have the back end still tells you what's getting played more, what's getting listened to more.
Well, no, what I'm saying is that I phrased that badly. The record companies are probably not looking at what people post on Facebook. They're looking at the data that is also used to generate.
They're looking at the back end,
to generate this. But
yeah, that's really, really interesting. And as far as breaking news, that's about as breaking as it can get.
I saw one. I think it was actually it was my brother who posted this, and his #1 song was 433.
That just makes me exceptionally happy.
No, it didn't list Cage as the artist, but the way Spotify works, unfortunately, is that it always lists the performer or the composer, which is I think one of the reasons why a lot of classically inclined musicians don't particularly like Spotify that much.
I don't like it for other reasons.
Well, I know there's also issues with their compensation of
lack thereof.
Right, exactly. But yeah, but 433. I'm like, so you spent most of your time listening to Silence. Well, okay. But anyway, yeah, I think that about wraps up our news for this week. One thing I wanted to bring up over at New Music Box, they've been doing theme weeks lately, and Oh, you found it. And this week they're doing a series of articles on the creative process, and I'd like to get into more details on that in some future installments of our show. They posted a couple videos earlier this week that I haven't got the chance to listen to or
we've
watch
discussed that. We've actually just sidebar off that really quick before we continue with that.
Yeah.
Do let us know. We've discussed in the past having, because like something that I've been starting to record lately and that I'm getting ready to post online, at least on my personal page or one of my personal pages for YouTube, is kind of like, you know, separate things that are composer related that don't really fit into composer talk, but things like comparing different composition texts, things like that. Is that the kind of stuff that is desired? I mean, I don't know. If that's stuff that you guys want to see, then we can talk about getting stuff like in-depth discussions of this stuff or the reviews of certain composition texts, you know, things that are good, things that are bad. If you feel like that's stuff that you'd like to have in this kind of the same feed as the Composer Talk weekly show, then let us know. I'd be happy to migrate that over, and then we can get some of the stuff that you're talking about on too. Because there are some discussions that we do want to go a bit more in depth on, but due to the nature of we kind of want to give you guys the news and the full ingest, we can't really spend, you know, an hour talking about, you know, certain topics like this every single week. So just let us know. Anyways, continue.
But anyway, well, the article's up on your screen right now. But the most recent article that's been posted is deals with the concept of composer, the negative self-talk we get going in our heads when, you know, echoing the title of this article, when you're working on a piece and you get to the point where it's like, oh my god, this sucks. This is a terrible piece. This is the worst thing I've ever written. In fact, everything I've written is bad. I should just stop and give up because I'm a terrible composer. And
we've all been there.
We've all had those moments. And it's not just a composer problem. It's a creative artist in general problem.
Honestly, actually, it's not just a creative artist problem because like with programming, for instance,
right?
That's, I mean, yeah, it is very creative. Like, trust me, you have to be creative, but it is much more logic oriented than most arts. I find myself frequently literally sitting there just wishing I could catapult this monitor through that window, but then I think about how mad my wife would be, and that's the only thing that keeps me from doing it. Well, no, because like think about it, like something like Polyphony. Sometimes you're like, oh Zach, this little thing won't work on my website, and I'll sit there and I'll be like, oh, that should be a simple problem. Then you suddenly hear from my room,
I'm not a programmer, but I'm well aware of how seemingly simple problems.
The old joke is, for every bug you fix, you create 8 more. Well, I mean, it's not inaccurate.
And that's actually I find a helpful way to look at the creative process also. And really learning about anything in general, because I mean, as composers, you know, whether you're in school or out of school, you know, or studying with a composer or out on your own freelancing, you're always learning. That's part of being a composer, and it's a good it's something I had a teacher bring up to me several years ago in lessons. When you try to fix something, like trying to improve something about whether it's you're performing or you're composing. So let's say, as an example, let's say I want to get better at my percussion writing, right?
Right.
So I really work and I read up and I study scores and
grab that blue book on the chair, on the base of the stack.
Is this your book about writing for percussion? Yes.
I literally have books on everything.
Well, I might read this book, right? About writing for percussion, but if you when you address, you know, a flaw or problem in your playing or your composing or your writing or whatever, what often happens is you fix that problem. Okay, you can put the book down now. I
was just levitating it.
You fix that problem, but it exposes, right, like you said, 7 or 8 more problems that you didn't know about. And I mean, that's a fact of life, of just growing as a person. It's a fact of being a creative artist or really any kind of craftsman, I think in any field.
Yeah.
And And well, in addition, there have been a lot of articles out there lately about imposter syndrome, which is you've read some of these, haven't you?
Yeah, the imposter syndrome. I mean, honestly, this is something that I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but just to tangent off that, I mean, I kind of went through a whole phase of this. Everything I do sucks, and the imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, for roughly I'd say throughout all of high school, whenever I started composing, and even my freshman year a little bit. And part of that, this is going a little bit more in depth, but I think you kind of need to know it to hear. But I basically just didn't really get kind of, quote, the praise and recognition I earned. Because I grew up in a house. I mean, obviously my parents cared about me a lot, but I was the smarter kid. My older sister, you know, she did okay in school, but like I would rock it. I would bring home A's and I get like an A minus, and it's like, what the heck? And the same thing came down to composition. And I was also in an environment, my high school, trying to start being a composer before you're in college, by the way, miserable experience, because people just think that you're a hack no matter what. They're like, why would I do this? You suck. Why would I do this? I don't respect you, that kind of thing. And due to that, I kind of developed this imposter syndrome that lasted for me through my freshman year, whenever I finally sat down and I was told by my composition instructor that you're way ahead of the game. Like, I don't think you realize you're way ahead. And because I was curious, I was like, why'd you stick me in this orchestration class? I'm a freshman. I'm not supposed to be here till I'm like a senior or junior. He was like, because you have to be in here. I was like, why? He's like, well, because you're fine, trust me. And then I started seeing what he meant, and I finally broke down that. But now I kind of found myself on the opposite end, where I'm kind of trying to, I guess, compensate for that. And it's actually been a journey. I mean, I'm at the end of that journey now, but it was a journey, and I don't know, I feel like imposter syndrome for me is a very personal topic, because I really did suffer from it for a long time, and it had reprimands through even the past couple years. I mean, I'd say a couple years ago was my last real reprimand from having the imposter imposter syndrome. And so I think it's really important to, whenever you do have imposter syndrome, something that helped me get past it is to not necessarily compare yourself to others, but actually just objectively look at what you've done after you did it. So, like, let's say you write something in, like, September. Look at it in January.
Right.
And look at it objectively without having looked at it, and just be like, you know, this really wasn't that bad. You know, I don't know, like, what, for instance, I don't know what Zach was saying. I wrote this piece. It's perfectly good. It's for didgeridoo. Who cares? Please don't write a piece of didgeridoo.
It's been done.
Yeah, it's a good instrument. But yeah, so honestly, like, it's really important to break past it. And one of the ways you can do that is to self-evaluate. And I didn't learn that until much later. So I guess I caution everybody, and even you, just evaluate yourself early and often, and it will help you avoid imposter syndrome, because imposter syndrome is something that can have long-lasting effects. And I don't like that I had long-lasting effects, but I mean, honestly, it couldn't be helped. I was in an environment that just did not foster, oh, we have this smart kid that is writing music. He must be a freak. So, I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
that's my thoughts.
And no, I would push back, not really push back. Give it a different angle on that. Your experience was imposter syndrome in the sense that it resulted from not getting recognition. For a lot of people, despite being recognized and even acclaimed for the work they do,
I was recognized though I was recognized by the people that actually mattered by, like my instructors. Dr. Sharp got a hold of me early on into my sophomore year, and working with him changed me.
Right.
But it's not necessarily not getting it. I guess it's more just not having it recognized by your peers. That's really the dangerous part. Well, and I know it sounds almost petty, but I mean, it's a shame that you have a kid that was writing, I was writing my first symphony at the time, and people were more excited about Bob Johnson down the street who, oh, look, I played guitar and I sang a song at the same time and I got some award in the local news for it. It's like, it was like the 30-second thing, and he literally just strummed the same notes. He didn't even do anything advanced. Like, when I hear you just, like, banging around on your guitar, that's more advanced than he was doing, and he got an award for it. And I'm sitting there like, I know kids that play better.
Well, and that's something that I think creative artists in general, I mean, we all kind of have to deal with. Many of the best musicians in the world are not the ones who are recognized. Because if you talk, well, even in the popular music industry, if you talk to anyone who's in the know in the industry, the best players are not the people who get famous. The best players are the session musicians who play on their recordings and are essentially handed a song and it's like, play this, and they get one take and they have to.
Or like, honestly, the most I think I mentioned this to you the other day, but the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra. That is literally the most talented orchestra in the world. Because think about it. Every 2 weeks, just about, they're playing a new opera. Half the time, it's contemporary stuff that ain't easy to sight read.
And nobody knows the
I don't know the cellists there.
People in the know in the industry know the names of those people because there's a list of people who get called to play in that orchestra. But they're not the people. You know, they're not the people who are getting recognized. You know, the soloists. You know, who tour and go into major orchestras, or even the opera singers who sing at the Met. Although they are, of course, ridiculously talented as well. But it's something we all kind of have to deal with. And yeah, there's a few of us who get lucky. And we make a big name for ourselves, but yeah, you know, I mean, for most composers, you're being famous, you know, is not something that we is really on our radar. I mean, even the most well-known composers in the world today aren't at the same level of you know, pop singers and stuff like that, many of whom can't even sing. Not true of all of them. There are some extremely talented and well-versed popular musicians, pop stars. But yeah, there's, see, I think of an imposter syndrome per se as something a little different from that, although that's obviously an issue too. Because if you read the articles on imposter syndrome, what it tends to be more about is people who are acclaimed and well known for their work, but it's a matter of not being able to self-evaluate properly. They're convinced that despite external evidence to the contrary, their success in their field, that is why they call it imposter syndrome, that they're fooling everybody, they're really not very good at what they do. And so I think it's two sides of the same coin, because
related
one is to what you went through.
One is more internalized,
right?
Whereas mine was one is internally caused, and in my case it was externally caused, but it causes the same results. And
many of them, and for somebody who struggles with kind of that side of the coin, it's kind of related to what we were talking about earlier about you fix one problem and a bunch of others. Kind of the realization I think that you have to come to is that if you are learning and if you are doing well in your field, realizing your flaws and the areas in which you're inadequate is actually, in some sense, evidence that you're doing well, because when you go deep enough into anything, it's the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. For somebody who simply has a cursory knowledge of music or of composition, you know, it's like, well I could do this, you know, I'm really good, you know, such and such. But once you realize the incredible almost incalculable depth of what's possible musically, of all the musical knowledge that is out there in the world, you realize more that, you know, I really don't know that much, and that's something that I think it's you have to move beyond the sense of feeling inadequate to actually feeling freed, because once you realize that you're never going to know everything, you can just start to enjoy the the journey of learning.
Right.
And not have to feel like you have a grasp on everything, but enjoy each new thing that you come across and that you learn.
I totally agree with that, and just I think it's one of the trickiest topics for me as far as music composition, because composition in particular, it is so easy to fall into this everything I do sucks mentality, which, whether or not your craft does suck, you can't think that it sucks. If you do, then you weren't true to yourself. That's the way I think about it.
Right.
Because, like, I can look at music of mine and think, oh, this is lesser. Maybe I should have improved this a bit. But in general, I mean, honestly, you have to like your art. Maybe you don't like it as much, but to actually actively despise something that you did, that means that you cheated yourself artistically.
Well, and I do think, in some sense, when looking back, you might look back at an older piece with the perspective that this really wasn't very good. I didn't do such and such well.
Right, but you don't hate
it. But hopefully you can at least say, well, I learned something from the piece. You know, it might not be very good, but it's a step in my compositional journey, and that happens for inexperienced composers and experienced composers.
Right.
Right, and I think we all have to be realistic about our abilities, and there's the opposite extreme where you can just get arrogant and think, oh, I'm the best, so I'm good at everything, and a lot of artists kind of tend to oscillate between those extremes.
Yeah,
but
honestly, I think the oscillating is possibly even more dangerous, and that's because, I mean, I'm at the tail end of like doing one large oscillation. Well, I'm past the tail end, but I had a long-winded oscillation of about 7 years. I can't imagine doing that again, let alone doing it as a more frequent thing. I mean, I kind of enjoy the fact that I'm past. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm above. I'm better. But I'm just saying that I've moved past it, and
something. Yeah,
and I learned something, and I think what everybody does learn in the end with imposter syndrome is that you are composing. You are a composer. Therefore, you are succeeding. Now, if you're getting awards that you don't feel you earned, maybe that's actually the sign that maybe you feel that you cheated it somehow. Maybe you only put 90% of your effort into the piece that you won with instead of 100%. And that's something that, I'll be honest, there's probably one thing that I did win that I feel that maybe I not really half baked or anything, but I feel that wasn't quite 100% for me. But even that, I know what I could have done better, and I know that I delivered something that was what was expected, at least.
And nobody works at 100% of their capacity all the time. Ultimately, none of us are ever going to fully fulfill our potential in the short lives that we have. So I think ultimately it's a matter of pride, both an endless obsession over your inadequacies and an endless obsession over your perceived superiority are symptomatic that maybe you're focusing too much on yourself and how good you are in relation to other people.
Right.
What you really should be focusing on is number one, am I this goes beyond simply your art, but am I living a good life where I'm not just focused on myself, but focused on doing good for other people?
Right.
Because as composers, I mean, we put our music out there for people, and we hope they enjoy it and that it does something good. And two, am I learning as I go along? Not am I better than so and so, but am I learning stuff in my own life? You're your own competition.
Right. Well, let us know. Have you suffered from imposter syndrome? Do you consistently think that your music sucks? does your music actually suck? You know, feel free to let us know. You know, our email address, just, you know, because if you don't want to dump in the comment section, you don't want to dump it via YouTube message just because you don't have an account, whatever. Just email us. It's literally just composertalk@gmail. Because we are that creative here. But yeah, just let us know.
You don't want to be creative with your email address.
Yeah, you really don't want... Well, I was creative, and it's easy. Kazgem.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's...
But that's because it's a really good name.
That's like it's like your alias for your gaming stuff, right? It's not like your you know, username or whatever was Kazgem, and then for the email I'm gonna be, you know, Dark Lord of Gaming, you know, 71 or, you know, whatever. So
I hate those kind of names.
I'm
also,
my first cat. We have a cat here. I would pick her up, but she'll probably attack me.
I would pick her up, but you're in my way. Yeah. Either way, so yeah, let us know, and we're going to move on. Do you want to talk about the quoting?
Yeah, there's some larger topics that we could get to, but we don't have time.
Yeah, so we're going. Man, that one topic has been good. So we'll just see where we end up. But right now, I do want to mention, because it's kind of it's something that's been on the plate before, and it's something that I feel it's relevant to composition as a whole. But how do you feel about quoting compositions within your own?
Charles Ives. That should be a theme song.
I will smack you with this mic stand. Like, just...
I can't think of stuff that rhymes with chives. We in undergrad there was a running joke in our 20th century music class. We called Ives Chives because his name was Charles Ives.
Yeah.
Chives, yes. But
so I mean, what do you think about quoting compositions? I mean, is this something that we should do? Is it something that is legal? Is it something that is right? Is it artistically valid?
I mean, sure. Like, I don't think it's a should or shouldn't thing. There's, I mean, you can do it well or you can do it poorly. I think with people like Ives and Berio and composers like this, it was part of their eclectic style to quote and to use existing material.
Right.
It really I don't see it as a should or should not thing. Unfortunately, well, fortunately or unfortunately, we can't all be Ives because of copyright law, and it's not like I can just take a melody out of a Shulamit Ron piece or something and stick it into my music.
Well, the reason why I ask is because there was a user comment via message about, oh, I've got this ensemble, but they basically rejected my music because a small passage of it, I believe they said 10 or so bars, sounded too much like a David Maslenka piece, when the piece was in honor of said David Maslenka.
Right, so it was an intentional quote. It was
no, it wasn't even a quote. Just it was musically very similar. It wasn't even a direct quote. Mm-hmm. If anything, it was an indirect quote, but I would hardly classify it as that. I've seen the example. I mean, and this ensemble, they went around the student and the student's instructor and just told the ultimate superior of the area that they're in. Oh, hey, this particular composer is cheating. When obviously that wasn't the case. I mean, I've had my music stolen before.
Right.
That's not like...
Well, and of course, you know, we're not going to give any specifics.
Right, yeah.
But
I mean, this user that we were messaged about, I mean, that is a very prevalent... I mean, honestly, it is a fear. I mean, what if you do accidentally quote, like, there was a moment in my second symphony where, you know, Dr. Sharp was like, oh, all I hear is Brahms 2 or something right here. And I'm like, I've never even heard any Brahms symphonies. He's like, everybody else is going to think you're just stealing Brahms too. I'm like, I've literally never heard it, though. And so I didn't understand at the time. However, now, I mean, as I've matriculated many times, you know, gotten several degrees, I've gotten a lot more knowledge. I do understand where he was coming from. I
Well,
100% do.
There's plenty. I had that happen to me with a teacher telling me, "Oh, it sounds like this," and I've never listened to that composer before. It's and you know, sometimes we just have common influences with somebody, and we end up
Yeah.
in sort of the same place at some point, which of course, sounding like someone is not the same as quoting them or copying them.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
kind of a quoting. Like, you
Right.
can quote the style of Beethoven.
it's
You can quote the style of
right.
Haydn.
But
You
like,
can quote
but
the
like,
style of Frost.
but like, you're never going to get a like, you're never going to get sued. Well, you should. It wouldn't hold up in court. If you wrote a piece in somebody's style, because you
Right.
can't
Well, keep in mind,
copyright
this
style.
isn't quote level. This is literally just composer to
Right,
performer. I mean,
Yes, I know.
yeah. So I mean,
But-
this is a bridge that doesn't exist anymore due to just a huge misunderstanding.
Well, and there's
And trust me, that bridge is burnt.
Right.
Like, it's gone. Like,
And-
based on what I was told, it's gone.
and that's really unfortunate, and unfortunately I think there's always going to be people out there who can't tell the difference between a quote or an homage and copying. It's kind of like there's people out there who can't tell the difference between satire and something that's and something that's serious
Like, attacking it, yeah.
on the internet, right? Because you'll see people who don't realize that something's satire.
Well,
post it like
though,
it's
to be
serious.
fair,
Mhm.
and I know that this is a huge thing several years ago with The Onion. The Onion did get in trouble one time because they did post a satirical article, and they did recall it, but it was actually a more serious thing. Like, it said something like a threat or something to the United States from a foreign power, and it was basically just deemed that, yeah, satire is okay. And actually, you know what this really reminds me of? Did you see any of the stuff for, I think it was Battlefield 3 or something like that?
It
was a video game.
Oh,
No,
the video
a
game.
video
Oh,
game.
the game. No,
Any of the-
I
So
didn't
several
know
years
it.
ago, there was a game, I believe it might have been Battlefield 3. I don't remember which, but they got in serious trouble because the commercial was a news report with live people talking about a terror attack in downtown New York City. And it
Yeah.
was about that. And see, that kind of triggered your memory with it. 'Cause
No,
this is a
no,
huge
it
thing.
didn't
Oh,
actually
well,
trigger
okay.
my memory of
But
something else.
honestly, like, it was, and I watched it, and I'm very embedded in the gaming world.
Right.
I actually was like, oh, what's going on? Oh, she's like, I don't know what's going on. This is bad. And then at the very end, it just, like, has a small clip of, like, coming spring whatever or winter whatever,
Right.
which once you see that you realize, okay, this is a game, I should get hyped. But if you're just flipping through channels,
It looks what that reminded me of is that's actually it's older. That's something that's older than you think.
no, I know
And
the invasion thing, Mars, the
War of the
War
Worlds.
of the Worlds, yeah.
When H.G. Wells wrote his
and that
War of
was
the
their
Worlds,
inspiration.
right,
They even said,
right. It was a radio broadcast. And people thought that it was really happening, that aliens were actually invading.
and
Of
they
course,
committed suicide. And
yeah. Now, and of course, I don't know it, but it's the kind of thing that you really should not have been repeated.
Composer Talk does not endorse suicide or false news claims.
No, we do not.
We don't believe in hashtag fake news.
No, but it's the kind of thing that really, I mean it's an interesting historical thing. People actually thought this is real. It's something that should only have been done once, because number one, anybody who does it afterwards is just completely ripping off War of the Worlds, and
Yeah.
two, as we learned, it can have actual negative consequences, like people going into a panic, and some might even kill themselves or do something rash or destructive, even if it's not.
Well,
that
yeah, and
so
rounding this back to the world of composition, that was a huge tangent, but just it does help contextualize. I mean, it is a problem that a lot of people do see. Oh, this sounds similar enough to something, therefore you stole it. And first of all, it's like, well, yes, but also to back it up even further, this particular piece was written in memory of David Maslenka. while
Right.
sounding like David Mislenka for a few bars. And it was a sketch, not the finished piece. And to make it even better, this person was in contact with David Mislenka, talking about it, and before his death, he did mention he can't wait to hear the quintet because it was originally meant to sound like him, but now it's just an homage to him while sounding like him. So honestly,
right.
This particular ensemble, in my opinion, has no ground to stand on.
And that is ridiculous. And our by my tangent, I didn't mean to imply that it's okay to.
Well, no, yeah, I know.
But I mean, but like I said, there will always be those people who can't tell the difference, and ultimately, I mean, it's a fault of communication as much as it is in anything. If there's something that's ambiguous, right?
Well, there was no attempt of communication, so it's still
because
on that
I
end.
feel like if I was in the position of an ensemble and I got something and it's like this part sounds
This sounds like Zach's music.
Yeah, I might you know, and if I might contact the composer and be like, so what's with this? You know, what was the intention here? And it's it's supposed to be an homage to this composer. You know, that I would be like, okay. Now there are some situations in which it's blatant and you're stealing, and of course that person is somebody who steals should be disqualified from that competition.
And actually, a sidebar from that, because I read into copyright law a lot. You know that myth about, as long as you quote like within so many seconds, it's not stealing?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard stuff like that.
That is 100% a myth, as it turns out. That does not exist. If you take anything that can be recognized, so like for instance, if Beethoven's Fifth was written yesterday, and I write something that's dun 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 instead of dun 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 dun, I mean, that's close enough and it's intentional enough in how it's done that it's I just did it really quick to be cheeky. That is actually copyright infringement, and you can get some serious trouble.
Well, and I think that's a case in which the law is messed up. I mean, copyright laws, it is really messed up, and there's all kinds of...
It's being adjusted as we go forward.
Right, and that's part of the problem, is it can't necessarily keep up with every development. But really, from what I understand, our copyright system just kind of needs reform. But
particularly with composition.
But there's all kinds of weird things, like you can't copyright harmonic progressions, for instance.
Right.
So I could lift a harmonic progression wholesale from somebody else's piece, but it had a different melody and a different texture. They would not have a legal ground to stand on, at least.
From what I understand of the copyright law,
right,
harmonic progressions are not protected at all, because they can't be. There's only so many harmonic progressions.
And that makes sense to an extent, because there's only so much you can do, and it's why there's a lot of jazz standards out there that are just old show tunes with new melodies.
Honestly, there's a lot of jazz music that is illegal. Even like published things by publishers, the writing of that piece originally was illegal, and it's a huge problem, at least that I have with jazz as a whole.
And I think to an extent, especially with many of the jazz standards, the industry's overlooked it, because jazz, I mean, it is a kind of an American folk tradition, and I think, you know, I honestly, for me, there's all kinds of nuances to quoting and to appropriating other music that is really not adequately covered under copyright law.
Right.
And in traditions like jazz are, I mean, in large part based on adaptations of other music. And it was made by musicians who they didn't have the money to pay licensing fees, and many, you know, of the early jazz musicians we're talking about black musicians in the early 20th century who were an oppressed minority, and it's like they don't have them, they didn't, it's not like all those musicians had the money or resources to be paying licensing fees for every tune they used.
Right, but that comes down to, and this is just personal stance of mine, and this is just as a composer and as a content creator, I create lots of content for different stuff. And my personal opinion is, if you can't afford the licensing for it, you need to just be creative and do something on your own that doesn't need that. Because honestly, and it is something that, you know, I mean, obviously we could go round and round on this forever, but in the end, you know, do you find that quoting compositions is probably, I guess, a little harder?
It's harder. Well, it's harder now. It's harder than it should be. Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. Well, and honestly, I feel the same way. It's really hard. And honestly, in this particular instance, user, you know who you are. I personally think you are 100% in the right. Would you say as well?
Given your explanation, yes, most obviously. I mean, from what I know, yes.
Right. I mean, yeah. So you know, you guys let us know too. Just you can let us know, obviously through your usual channels and all that. You know, is quoting good? Is it bad? Should it be done? Even give us your opinion. If you feel that our mystery user is in the wrong, let us know. I mean, honestly, all perspectives are welcome, because again, this is an open forum. We're just initiating the discussion.
If you want to argue that it's all meaningless anyway because the giant space unicorn is going to come and reorder all music by 2020, then you be our guest. You are welcome to share that opinion. You probably won't get much agreement.
Well, I'm part of the sect that believes that he's going to come with a lightsaber, so I can't.
Some believe that he'll just have a normal sword, but it will be magically powered.
You know, magical unicorns aside, really briefly, I do want to mention just kind of, I guess, a small tag to what I guess we'll go a couple minutes over with this, but I did just want to mention that the reason why that Spotify thing, why it was so coincidental, and why we were both kind of like, that's interesting that came up. Something that we had planned, but I guess we'll bump it to next week. But our data kind of shaping the future of music, and kind of what does that mean? And part of what this article brings up is, you know, kind of like if you're a Nielsen family for TV, right? You are kind of expected societally to, okay, make intelligent show choices. Don't just leave the music on don't just leave the TV on in the background, things like that, because you are kind of responsible for controlling content. Right. Now, with that, and honestly, the Nielsen family thing has died off now, because now, since everything's digital anyways, we can just track it normally. Have statistics on Netflix. But or Netflix, that's a separate set of statistics.
Or Hulu
or regular TV.
Or regular TV.
But so in general, though, I mean, being responsible, and it might be something that as musicians we have to actually think about for the first time in history. Do I listen? And keeping in mind that we're composers, we're trying to help composed music, all that kind of stuff. If I can listen to one CD today, and I'm going to listen to one, and it's going to be tracked by Spotify or whatever streaming service you use, do I listen to this awesome metal album that my friend showed me, or do I try to boost the odds of my personal music gameplay by listening to music by contemporary composers of composed music?
And this really isn't new. I mean, audiences have always voted with their feet. It's just happening in a much more immediate
I'd say more prevalent way, because this is gonna, and I think this is gonna create, I think this is gonna not really shatter the industry, but I think it's really going to reshape huge aspects. We'll go into details next week, but I think this has huge repercussions, good and bad, for the music industry as a whole. I mean, wouldn't you say so?
Yeah, potentially, yes. Even though I do hesitate to get into the this is so new, because I mean, yes, the data is easier to track now, but it's not new. Audiences have always voted with their feet. It's simply that and of course this also has ramifications for online privacy.
Well,
For-
in
for-
the online privacy debate,
um,
that's obviously not something that we'll cover on this channel. 'Cause
basically,
that's,
if you don't
yeah.
want your data tracked, don't use it.
Right. Well, because
because-
honestly, think about it. You know, how does Google figure
Mhm.
out what a top search result is?
Right.
They track
There-
your search
of course,
results.
There are ways to get around it, but this is complicated tech stuff. Not really.
Actually,
Um,
all the ways you know to get around it are a lie. But anyways, this isn't a tech show, so I won't go into details on that. But anyways, so we will go into details though a bit more about data and the shaping the future of music, because I think it's really important. And hopefully we'll finally get to our mystery topic that we've had on the dock for like...
There's a couple mystery topics that we've had on the dot for several weeks.
No, this is the only one that's been on there for several weeks.
No.
This one is new.
There's one that got
Did we accidentally omit one?
that I accidentally omitted. I'll add it.
Come on, man, you had one job.
It wasn't gonna get discussed this week anyway. It was a larger topic.
Anyways.
But anyway, I think that's a wrap. Tune in next week for the data discussion and possibly some other cool stuff.
Hopefully this thing that I'm pointing at.
We appreciate your hate mail. Send it to us, and we're
Yeah.
out.
Yep.
Adios.
Zach Daniels signing off.
Yep, we're.
And Jacob Frost.
Herp
We'll
derp.
work on that. Peace out, guys.